I like to collect, a place in my head. I go to France a lot. I go to Central Australia and New Zealand. It's the first time I've been there, and I want to tell you, I want to go again. And because it's a marvelous. And then just yesterday on the radio, I heard somebody talking about collecting fossil. He was a geologist, and he said if you go to Cradle Mountain and you can touch it, that's where the magnum came up and separated that rock, and Australia floated off from New Zealand. I mean, New Zealand's older than Australia, and it's it is that sort of that rock thing was so much part of it for me. It's very different. I mean, my work is not immediately recognisable. And when I did those paintings in France, of course, people loved them because they could see the tree and the lay of the land. But even then, I'm interested in the way the land goes. I'm interested in what's beneath, what's making it, not just what's coming out of it somehow. It's probably others are too, but it's. I suppose I need reference all the time. I'm looking all the time. Look. Even when I go down to the beach in the morning, have a swim, and when I go out. But as EUAN said, after a while, your material fades a bit, doesn't it? You said that at the other talk, and I was interested in that. So you have to keep recollecting for yourself. But I can change things, I'm allowed.
Do you normally, is landscape typical for you to use as a subject matter?
I've been described as being an abstract artist too, but they're landscaping.
Is a reference.
But I don't like to use the word reference. I mean, the landscape is sort of seen in them, because I live near the sea, the things that sea feeling. It's a matter of how far you can go away from reality and being, abstraction is not just dumping on paint. Abstraction comes from a very real knowledge and a very real ability to draw and to go back into your source and your roots, I think.
But I don't think I've ever seen anything as representational as what you did, those four little en plein air that you've got in there.
Yeah.
They're, one of them from a distance almost looks like a total representation of the place, with the layering and the moss and very, beautiful, which I've never seen in Ainsworth before.
But I have done.
Yeah. So I wondered if it was something I'd never seen or something you'd never done.
They're usually sort of not shown, although Charles Notton wants to show them in the
yeah.
so,
And I guess that's that thing, isn't it, where the audience does like something that's recognisable, they can kind of go, that's it.
Yes, and I suppose what I'm saying is trying to make people understand that it's not always what you know, and it's not always what I know, it's what I don't know that I'm interested in. It's that going further. From the time I was about 9, and my father said, oh no, that's not a good idea. And so, I should work in an office. Anyway, I finally got to Sydney and went to the National Art School, and he said, you can buy your paints on my account at Dymocks. Well, I bought the best quality Winsor Newton. And that's such a difference. Everyone else was using rubbish. And I had a really good base for painting with those paints. And that liquid, and it was that sitting that paint on and being able to, get it to arrive on the canvas. You're marrying the paint to the canvas. It's a beautiful thing.
It does have an oily look, but I don't think Anne's intention is for it to imitate oils. I think that's
to me, it's just stuff. I'm using acrylic all the time now on canvas, and it's just paint.
You've got your paper collage in there as well.
Yes, well, those that's tarred paper that I stand on, and it catches drips of paint, and it looks like rock to me. If you look at rocks, even if you're swimming underwater, you'll see rocks, or if you're looking out, it's sort of something has been there, and I like the fact that it had arrived on its own, and I can use that. Well, I love collage.
It's a long-term interest, I think. I was born in the country, so my father was a farmer and also a pilot, and we'd fly over the country, and I suppose one of my fondest memories of him were being in the countryside. So it was just him, it was there. And I went to art school in Melbourne, to RMIT, and then to the Victorian College of the Arts, where I became very close friends with Michael Shannon, who was a great Australian landscape painter. And I think the thing about the landscape, it was a kind of a tool to use to kind of talk about things that I personally am interested in. But it's you know, that and say, you know, you've got to go back and you've got to review your sources, and so it's a constant source. There's always something there that you can go to kind of reinvigorate the work you're making. So I've tried some other things, and they always sort of seem to be a cul-de-sac or a bit of a dead end, whereas the landscape, I can always find new things to say and new ways to say it, and I think, you know, there's going to be more there than I'll ever be able to kind of manage. And so I did a lot of different things, and when I got back to the studio, it was a matter of what am I going to do with this, and I tried. Dan talked about the trip we did. We drove, a group of us, down to the south of the North Island on one weekend, and that was a really interesting part of seeing and broader New Zealand, and I did some work from that as well when we got back. But in the end, the Ruapehu stuff, kind of, that was, I think, where we worked most successfully as a group, and it kind of suited my where I was, and I thought that whole sense of what the show became titled was sort of appropriate to the work I produced, that thing of the kind of ephemeral nature of things. That I think a lot of my Australian painting's often been about a kind of a classical stillness, or looking for a distillation, this sort of quiet sort of thing where Cézanne says, I would have put all the right marks in the right place. And it's sort of a classical view. And I think Ruapehu, because it was this moving molten mass, it was, for me, something that I had to kind of think about in a different way. And that became very exciting. And that only came about as I worked back in the studio. And one of the paintings I did kind of led into the rest of them. And then I put all the work around that I'd done. A lot more than is in the show, and in the end that just seemed to read as a little group that distilled what I got out of the show successfully. So that's why it meant leaving out the actual work I've done there, but I felt very satisfied with what I got out of it. And for me, it sort of really summed up what the trip was about.
Greg O'Brien also in the speech mentioned he thought Ruapehu was one of the most closest places to Australia in New Zealand that we could have gone. I don't know if I agree with that or not, but I thought that was quite interesting. So he thought if we'd gone to anywhere in New Zealand that was as much, you know, as similar to Australia, it would have been Ruapehu. It's more meaning the desert road, I think, that because Ruapehu is an active volcano and there's not too many of them here. But I thought that was interesting. But I do think it was because everyone was quite competitive initially. The first few days were quite, there was a lot of competition. You know, people were sounding each other up. Some people were more comfortable with it than others. But I think by the time we got to Ruapehu, we really felt like a really lovely sense of camaraderie.
What do you think was different about that landscape to what you felt here? Like, is it the land and the sky that feels different? Because your work seems quite opaque in its colours. I mean, there's lots of translucent layers there, but there's a heaviness with the sky and the land.
You know what was happening up there? Everything was moving and changing all the time.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before. The clouds are moving. The mountain would be there one minute and gone the next.
The shadows.
Oh, you had to go fast.
Well, I think, in the sort of the titles of my pictures, I think afterwards when I looked at them, I thought that's what, for me, it's about. I mean, even though it was rocky, it was a moving, molten place. You know, everything was shifting. And as Anne said, you know, it sort of creates its own atmosphere. So the clouds would come down and they'd move around and you get a bright bit of sunshine 1 minute and then it would all shift and change the whole time. And you could see this kind of slipping, sliding volcanic mass that you were sitting on working.